All join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all here. Thanks for showing up on this Tuesday evening. You know, a big part of this practice is really beginning to understand what is your intention with why you do things. And, you know, very often when we look at kind of basic Buddhist teachings and we look at loving kindness and compassion and joy and equanimity and all these kind of key buzzwords you hear thrown around, you know, these Buddhist places, and they're all wonderful things to practice, and we will touch on them. But it's important always to check in with everything and ask yourself, what is the intention behind your actions? And if you can begin to understand your intention behind every action, it begins to kind of shift how you do things. Now, when your intention is filled with greed and selfishness and me, then that's what's going to follow. But if the intention of doing things is really for others, to make life calmer, more peaceful, more pleasant, more enjoyable, then that's what's going to follow. So as we're working on thinking good thoughts and speaking good words and doing good deeds and all these kind of things you always hear, never forget to ask yourself, why? What is the intention behind what you're doing? And if you pause each day, I mean, you can just say 5 times a day or whatever, you know, you choose. If you pause each day throughout the day and ask yourself, why am I doing this? What is the purpose? It'll be kind of shocking if you're honest about it. Anyone good at kind of lying to themselves and convincing themselves that what they're doing is so wonderful, but maybe it's not. Or what, you know, you're doing is kind of filled with selfless action, or is it filled with, you know, kind of greed and all about me? So if you watch yourself throughout your day, this can really be used as a motivator to also shift how you spend your time. So something I ask every so often people to kind of do is, again, stop throughout each day. You can try it the rest of tonight. I mean, the night's not over, right? And even with your intention of coming here. But then when you leave, wherever you're going, ask yourself, what is my intention and why I'm going here? And then whenever you get wherever you're getting and you sit down and you start doing whatever you're doing, ask yourself, what is my intention for why I'm doing this? And this practice ultimately is getting to know the nature of your own mind, what you think, what you say, and what you do, which is wonderful. But behind all of that is, why are you thinking this? Why are you saying this? And why are you doing this? And when you can really begin to observe that, and you tie that into kind of Buddhist teachings around right effort, right livelihood, it really begins to shift how you spend your days and nights. So and ultimately what the end result is as to why you're doing what you're doing. So with that, we'll start with a meditation practice. For those who are joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free. There's a chat box on your screen somewhere. Feel free to say hello. When we get to questions, you can share them there as well. So a couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. You're not going to figure anything out whatsoever. The mind that's racing all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. I mean, you don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, also just trying to sit up straight. Relaxing the shoulders, hand can be on the knees or in the lap. If you need to move during meditation, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator, it just means you need to move. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with your eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed, whatever's comfortable. I'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Return to breath. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgment from the practice, just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. You began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. That's what you get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. And the present moment is often filled with tremendous difficulty, conflict, chaos, challenges. And so this practice is learning to be with life as it arises, to be with the difficulties as they arise. We've spent most of our lives escaping, running from people, places, and things. And this practice is learning to sit with life as it occurs. Safely, of course. If not safe, please run. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter every moment of your life. We spend so much of our time trying to fix, change, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us. Hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that. We spend so much time trying to control everything outside of us. We have a hard enough time controlling what we say. Yet for some reason we roam around thinking we're going to get other people to change. Once we stop trying to fix all of that, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. And as I talked about at the beginning tonight, understanding the intention behind why you do things, creating space in your life to slow down, to cultivate a daily meditation practice, even just 5 minutes, gives you an opportunity to actually sit, allow the mind to settle from all the madness of the morning, the afternoon, or the night. And when you allow the mind to settle, it becomes a little more clear. You ever been really angry and tried to figure stuff out? It doesn't usually work so well because we're just constantly driven by these emotions: anger, stress, anxiety, sadness, depression. They absolutely rule our lives. And all they are is just thoughts that we attach to and cling to and think are never going to change. And then they create very quickly these emotions, these feelings of anger, stress, anxiety, sadness, and depression. Because we hang on to those thoughts. We turn them into lovely stories that we tell ourselves for 30 years. And then you wonder why you're miserable. Learn to appreciate each moment as it arises. Even when it's difficult, that means you're alive. It means you care. It means you have a heart that wants things to be healthy and happy. That's the reason most people show up to a place like this. So I appreciate y'all showing up. But allow the mind to settle a few minutes every single day so you can begin to look at truly and honestly what your intentions are behind your actions. And then your life will change. It really will. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I really just prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that you're sitting with. And again, to those who are joining virtually, welcome. Thanks for showing up. There's a chat box on the screen, as I said. Feel free if you have questions or just want to say hello, put them on the chat box there, and I'll do my best to respond. But I'll just open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And we'll use the rest of our brief time this evening for that. Yes?
I see the Buddha behind you.
Yeah.
What are the hands doing?
Which one? The gold one up top, or
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a compassion mudra.
With fingers, I can't see very well.
Yeah, you'll see them differently, but if you're holding it like this, yeah, that'll work. Perfect. Look, you look more compassionate already. Well, there you go. Now you do because you're smiling. So that's Kuan Yin. Her name literally means "hearer of the world's cries." The Dalai Lama, they say, is the rebirth of the Bodhisattva Kuan Yin. She hears all the pain and suffering in the world and then pours out compassion to heal. She's often seen holding or pouring out a vase, and that's considered the vase of compassion. And after we were downtown for 10 years, moved here 6.5 years ago, and when we were kind of creating the shrine space, we felt nothing more appropriate than putting the Kuan Yin, the feminine energy, and just to have that endless compassion was what this place, this city, this world needed more of. So she watches over all of us and pours out compassion because we need it. Yeah. What else? Questions? Yeah.
A friend of mine lost his wife basically like 2 days ago, and as I am being as of course I'm being as compassionate as possible, but it's I don't know, it's like not almost satisfying to know that, as we talk about all the time, I can't control how he feels. I can only control my reaction to external stimuli. But seeing grief in an abstract fashion versus seeing someone I love go through like the most terrible thing I can think of is obviously I'm pretty new around here and I haven't internalized, I don't know, all this stuff, but I'm just like grasping for maybe a more, I don't know, satisfying way to look at this or approach things like that.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. Just to paraphrase for those who didn't hear it, 2 days ago, your very dear friend lost his wife, and you understand what we talk about with impermanence. You didn't say the word, but with impermanence and in an abstract way, that's one thing to look at that, but when it hits so close to home, immediately, not as simple. And what I hear you asking for is guidance and views on what to do or what to say. And, one, I think your friend's lucky to have you. I send all my love and condolences to you and your friend and family and everybody, their family who's suffering right now. But the fact that you're here, the fact that that's on your heart, the fact that you're asking that question says a lot to me about who you are as an individual. So I just want to start there. And I think that's most important for you to remind yourself of, because in situations like this, there is not always, and there's very often never, the right thing to do, other than be a friend, listen, love, care, hurt, cry. This is life. There is no Buddhist teaching that is going to make all of that okay or feel any better, except for the fact that you can open up your heart and your mind to be there as a friend. And very often we look for the right thing to say or the right thing to do, and there isn't always that. And that's okay. So this is first for you, try, if at all possible, to relieve the burden that you may potentially mentally, emotionally, spiritually be carrying on you, that you're telling yourself you're supposed to be a certain way for them, or that you're supposed to take away their pain. You're not going to. They're going to hurt. They're going to be devastated. They're going to be crushed. And they can get through it. And you can be the best friend you can, probably by what you're already doing. Believe me, I wish I could say like, hey, here's this Buddhist teaching. You're going to take it back and everybody's going to be all good.
Yeah.
There isn't. There is what sounds to me from your question, you doing exactly what you're doing now. And again, if I have to wrap some Buddhist thing around it, which like you said, the abstract thing of impermanence, and that we're all, as we were born, we age, we get sick, and we die. To say that that happens to all of us, it's very easy to conceptually, intellectually ponder that and discuss that as if it's all these other people who were born and getting old and getting sick and dying. But when it's so close, it hurts, and it should hurt. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah. What else? Yes, sir.
Do you have any good strategies to stay in a selfless state of mind? Because I know me, like many people, spend 80% of my day just thinking about myself and the things that I should be doing. So I'm just wondering if you do inventory or there's any suggestions.
So your question was, just to paraphrase those who didn't hear up front or virtually, any advice on how to spend less time being focused on yourself, to be selfless? And you said, either you or many of us, I think you said you gave yourself 80% of the time you spent thinking about yourself. Man, that's actually pretty good that you're honestly spending 20% of your time thinking about others. I mean, I won't poll the room here, but you might be up at the top. You know, I know a lot of these people, and 90, 91% of the time, it's all about them. You know, they're lucky they squeeze out 10% for other people. So, no offense to all you, selfless people in the room. I think strategies, as far as what you're looking for, and you mentioned taking inventory, things like that. I understand, for those who, going through addiction, recovery, talk about inventory and the steps. Very often, I'll give you an example that's completely unrelated, but then I'll come back to your question. Very often people will say, I really want to cultivate, practice patience. You could read 1,000 books on patience, and all it's going to do is make you more pissed off that you're still not patient. The only way, I shouldn't say the only way, one of the best ways to practice patience is to put yourself in situations, again, safely, that require patience. You have a family member that drives you crazy? That smile tells me yes, right? It's usually a safe question to ask, especially as we head into the holidays here. So one great way to practice patience is call that family member or sit next to them at the table or whatever it might be. I usually just say the phone, but since we're coming up on times that some of us tend to be around people, not everybody. But call that person. And after 5 minutes of being on the phone and you're just going crazy and you want to just throw the phone out the window, stay on the phone 5 minutes longer. The only way to practice patience is to put yourself in situations that require practicing patience. The only way to practice selflessness is to put yourself in situations that require that. It's not an intellectual game. And what I heard in your question, I hear you, and it makes sense. You said the word, do you have any strategies? As if there's like tricks that I can convince and rewire my brain to be less selfless or less selfish. Dude, you've been selfish, as we all have, our entire lives. When you were born, you were screaming. You came in screaming, right? Somebody picked you up, and then you're like, oh, this feels better. Then you poop, and you're screaming again. Somebody changes your diaper, you're feeling better. Then you're hungry, you're screaming again. Somebody feeds you, you're feeling better. We're just big babies who are still screaming all day long for someone to come in and give us what we need. I point this out to tell you, it's like those old, it's not your fault, you're not alone. You are selfish, we all are selfish. That's how we start. People give us what we need, and we spend our whole lives craving. The Buddha says craving and desire leads to suffering. We're constantly craving and desiring something to take away discomfort. When you feel discomfort, don't intellectually think about how can I strategize to get out of this 80% I'm in and be selfless. Go help someone. There's your strategy. I don't care where you are at any point in time, there's almost always someone, somewhere, something that needs help. Thinking about helping others and helping others are two different things. You ever helped somebody? And how do you feel? Good. Do that more, right? There's a million ways to help people, from, simple, small, a smile, carrying something for someone. Whatever it might be, there's a million ways you can help people.
Thank you.
That is the best way to skew those numbers to where 80% is selfless. And you can still be selfish 20% of the time, and you're still going to get enough, man. So, does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. What else? Yeah, it's actually the root cause of suffering, as the Buddha taught, the second noble truth: greed, anger, and ignorance. And the very first one is greed. We always want more, craving, desire. And the way to come out of that is generosity, to give. And that's where you just go help people. So it is the way to end all suffering by helping others. Other thoughts, questions?
Can you say something about the Buddhist precepts? I noticed that there are 5 precepts, and then there's 16 Bodhisattva precepts. What's the purpose of having 2 sets?
Yeah. So the question was,
Sorry, coming here.
No, go ahead. Is that it? Yeah. So the question was, can I say something about the precepts? That that there's the 5 precepts, and then you said that there's the 16 Bodhisattva precepts. What's the purpose of having 2 sets of precepts? So I'll get into the numbers in a minute, because it's actually a lot more than that. Right? Yeah. You thought 5 was hard or 16 was hard. First, every tradition, every lineage within Buddhism varies slightly. But at the time of the Buddha, there were anywhere from 227 to 311 precepts. Quite a bit, right? But let me back up for those who've never heard the precepts before. I look at precepts as red lights. Do you drive?
Yeah.
When you get to a red light, do you have to stop?
Guess you don't have to.
You guess you don't have to. What are your options?
Stop or go through there.
There you go. Stop or go through. What happens if you go through?
You may die.
You may die, or Kill somebody,
Take it.
get a ticket, or what could happen if you run the red light? My friend in the back.
Save a few minutes.
Save a few minutes. And what's your name? Makai. It's so funny. It's like so I've been going into high schools for years, and I always find the one dude that was me. And when I'm talking to them, I just feel like I'm talking to myself. And so I knew that you would know the answer that I was looking for, that you could save a few minutes running through the red light. I too would have been sitting in the back, you know, with the hat on backwards and everything. But anyways, nothing. You could get away with it, right? So, but the point is, with the red lights, you don't have to stop. We do because it's safer. They even have a yellow light that warns you. They're like, hey, you should stop soon, right? And to some of us, it's like, oh, I got more time to go through, but they're there to warn us, to protect us. That's the purpose of stoplights, right? To keep us safe. Precepts are the same way. It's not like other religions where, and this is no knock on other religions, but the precepts are not like in other religions where it says, if you do this, you're going here. These precepts are for you and how they impact your life and the life of those around you. So the basic five, the first five precepts taught to refrain from lying, killing, or actually it's harming, but to do no harm, stealing, sexual misconduct, or intoxicants, anything that alters the state of mind. So when we lie, we cause tremendous pain and suffering. When we kill or do harm, we cause tremendous pain and suffering. Steal, same thing. Taking what's not ours, actually, right? It's not just like robbing stealing a car or something like that. Sexual misconduct, where our mind's at, how we view people, right? The things we think about, the things we look at, right? And then intoxicants. You ever had a beer and caused no harm?
Yeah.
You ever had 12 beers?
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the idea is to refrain from things that are going to put ourselves in situations that cause harm. And when we lie, when we kill, when we steal, when we have sexual misconduct, and we use intoxicants, we tend to put ourselves in really difficult, dangerous situations. Now, does that make sense so far? Without going into a whole long talk on the precepts, which I'm happy to discuss that as well. But I want to kind of point out specifically to your question, what you have then is a whole set of precepts that follow, and different, whether they're monastics, monks, or nuns, whether they're lay people, the bodhisattva precepts, they all have different kind of structures to them. And I think what's most important, I always like the teaching around precepts are not necessarily things that you should try to force in your life. I've given talks on precepts for years, and 80% of the time I talk about no intoxicants and no harming, or I should say 80% of the people, right, are going home, drinking intoxicants, and eating a burger, right? Meaning that we can talk about precepts all we want, and they're not meant to make you feel guilty. You could talk about doing no harm. Don't lie, don't kill, don't steal, no sexual misconduct, no intoxicants. And then you can go out here and do all five of those all night. And it's not meant to wake you up and make you feel like, oh no, I'm a bad Buddhist. It's not about being a good Buddhist or a bad Buddhist with these precepts. It's about understanding that when we do these things, we cause pain and suffering, very often to ourselves and others. So be mindful and aware of what these precepts are about and what they do and how they affect, right? One of my favorites is doing the precept talk with college kids, right? So you got 18 to 22-year-olds at San Diego State. The 5 precepts, for the most of them, that is their 4-year existence at San Diego State. But we dive into why. Why are you doing these things? And when you can begin to ask yourself, why do I lie? What am I lying about? Why am I constantly taking things? So when you begin to explore these, and I often suggest, especially for new people, which is all of us here, look at those first 5 and just watch. Pick one a day tomorrow. Just be like, okay, I'm going to try not to lie. It's hard, man. And with lying, one of the most difficult situations is recognizing how much we lie to ourselves. Years ago, a friend of mine downtown, when we did this talk, this was probably like 12 years ago, and he came back the next 2 days later, and he was trying these precepts, and he realized he was at the doctor, and he was filling out an anonymous form, and he found himself lying on the anonymous form. So, yeah, precepts. They'll keep you safe. What else? Thoughts, questions? Go ahead.
What is the Buddhist view of like, stuff like war and having a hard time kind of dealing with the news and all that?
Yeah. So the question was, what is the Buddhist view on war? And that you're having a hard time dealing with the news. I'm going to answer this following the two of the kind of founding principles of the Dharma Temple for 17 years, which is the two things we don't talk about are religion and politics. So I'm going to respond to your question around what are the Buddhist views on war, and you're having a hard time dealing with the news, keeping in mind that we don't discuss religion or politics because those are the things that divide people the most, and spaces like this are built to actually bring people together, not divide people. So I just want to say that first. The easier one to address is the news. Somebody years ago said, they asked a similar question, not even around such a heavy topic, and they said they just hours looking at the news. And I said, then spend less hours looking at the news. Okay? Now, you have to be very careful here because I'm not suggesting that we close our eye to what's going on or that we avoid or ignore, right? Buddhist teachings are be mindful and aware of what is occurring around you. And what is occurring around you is occurring around all of us. So be aware of it. Now, everybody's different. I'm not going to, necessarily suggest how much news you do watch or don't watch. Each person is going to, you look at the Buddhist teachings on the middle path and balance. So to your question, if you're watching the news for 3 hours a day and it's really just destroying you, you could probably watch the news an hour and a half a day and get just as much info without having the extra hour and a half destroy you emotionally. Right? And again, I'm just making these numbers up to give an example. If somebody spends 10 hours scrolling on Instagram, cut it down to 5, and you still will probably catch enough to know what's going on. Again, I'm not a fan of turning the blind eye and avoiding what's happening. What's happening is real, and we need to be aware. But watch yourself as you're scrolling through social media, as you're on the news, the media channels. And also understand that what you're seeing is millions of different views and opinions. Whether it's truth or not is not my point. What you're seeing is all different views and opinions. And with everybody's views and opinions, you have yours. And we all have the freedom and right to have our views and opinions, as does everybody else. It doesn't make what they're thinking or saying right. It doesn't mean you're okay with it. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it. But can we understand other people's views? If we want to solve anything, regardless of what it is, we must learn to create space to listen to other people's views. You look at people like Martin Luther King, Thich Nhat Hanh, the work they did together. We must listen to other people's views. I often say that I wish every person who was racist would come to an introduction to Buddhism and meditation class, because I want to understand, why are they that way? The dialogue must occur. So when you're watching the news, which you've hopefully cut down in half, and you're seeing what you're seeing, there's an immediate trigger that makes us want to hate. And I would be answering this regardless of what was going on today. Because 4 years ago, and again, this isn't minimizing what's going on here. I take what's going on very seriously. But 4 years ago, there was something else miserable and painful going on. 8 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. And 50 years from now, and 100 years from now, and next week, and next month, and next year, there are always going to be things like this going on. And it will just change. But if we are driven by only anger and hatred and rage, all we're bringing into these situations that already have enough anger and hatred and rage is more anger and hatred and rage. Right? Really difficult. Do not stay silent. There's nothing around Buddhist teachings about staying silent. But when we act, can we act from a place of loving kindness and compassion? The other part, as far as what does the Buddha think about war, right? There's no real answer to that. Following the precept discussion, there's a very clear teaching that says, do no harm, right? But I'll share this story with you, and you may have heard it, but for those who haven't heard it, in Buddhism, there's what's called the Jataka tales. And the Jataka tales are stories of past lives of the Buddha. Kind of like Aesop's fables in a way. They're cute, fun little stories. This one's not really cute or fun, but many of them are. And in the life just prior to being born, Siddhartha, who became the Buddha, the child was playing with some friends, maybe 12, 14 years old, and they came across a mother bear. And the little cubs were starving because the mother was malnourished, and so she couldn't feed her baby cubs. So this little child sent the friends to go get help. And when the friends ran off to go get help, the child fed himself to the mother bear. So the mother had enough nourishment to feed the cubs. That next life, the child was born as Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha. So as that bodhisattva enlightened being practiced, feeding himself to the mother bear, was reborn, very next life became a Buddha. So there's no answer here. I didn't give that story to answer any questions. Just to make us understand that I shared the 5 precepts: refrain from lying, refrain from harming. This bodhisattva enlightened being lied and harmed, so the mother could feed her children. I'm definitely not going to sit here and give answers on what people should or shouldn't be doing right now, because I don't know. I can just look at myself honestly and say, I'm as unenlightened and ignorant as anyone. And I know what might be in my heart and what's in my mind, but I don't understand. And so as a practitioner, I'm going to look at things that I feel are coming from the wisest, most compassionate space. And that may or may not be what people do or how people act, but not everything is always so straightforward. Yeah. Anything else? I mean, because that's real. We're all sitting in it right now, right? And if nothing else, I mean, if anything, please allow yourself to understand we are so incredibly fortunate and privileged to be sitting here and have this life that we have. So when you think your life is so rough and you think you have things so poorly, look at what's going on in the world and ask yourself, is your life really that bad? That you're going to spend so much time angry and miserable and depressed at things that are just going to pass? And I get it, it is all relative, but at times like these, they can really motivate us to find gratitude for every little thing we have. Because our lives, if you're a human in Buddhist teachings, right? You're looking at Indian cosmology, cycle of rebirth, reincarnation, things like that, right? Marcy's smiling. Why are you smiling? If you're a human, what does that mean? Huh?
It could be worse.
Could be worse. It means you got really good karma.
Yeah.
How many of you came in here tonight thinking you had really good karma? And how many of you came in here tonight thinking, man, my life is rough, right? Well, that Buddha dude was pretty smart. And he said that if you're born as a human, your karma, your past actions are incredible and phenomenal. So stop being so hard on yourselves. You know, find some gratitude for all that you have in your life, because we don't know when it's gone. So I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. So a few quick announcements from our Dharma Bum host Eddie before you all head out.
Hello everyone, I'm tonight's host Eddie. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They're simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 5 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you are done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. Few people could stay enclosed and latch the windows. That would be helpful. Thank you for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you all again.
And thanks, Eddie. And one last announcement. Thursday on Thanksgiving, we have our annual food distribution program, which is at 10 a.m., not 5 p.m. So 10 a.m. we'll meet here. We make gourmet vegetarian sandwiches, also known as peanut butter and jelly. So that'll be Thursday, 10 a.m. We'll prepare food for about an hour or so, 10 to 11, 11:15. We have socks and all kinds of stuff, warm hats that we'll pass out. So you can show up and then we'll head downtown and pass it out. So yeah, Makai, was it?
Yes, sir.
I'll see you Thursday, 10 a.m. Thanks all.